Why is this not playing?
Well, see, the thing is, I actually don't have time for a 4-hour debate. So let's just shoot the shit.
Okay.
Fred, do you have a job?
Okay,
What
let's
do you
just listen
think
to that again.
about the experience and
This is some actual footage from the debate.
Well, see, the thing is, I actually don't have time for a 4-hour debate. So let's just shoot the shit.
Okay.
Let's just shoot the shit, guys. So, the irony is this debate is actually 4 hours, and that's why I used that clip. But that is what people said when they were watching this abomination. So let us just see. And I know a lot of people probably like this, but the fact is, 4 hours 40 minutes for a fucking debate is so self-indulgent. But let's see how this goes.
To yet another Warski Live. How you all doing?
I'm assuming
Still
this
a
is
lot
the
of
right
people in
one.
the chat. How you all doing? Good. We got Sargon's gonna be just 4 minutes.
Let me know if the audio's okay. Oh no, that's ironic. A New York Times ad on this debate.
Minutes, but we decided to start, so we're not too late.
Okay.
Today is probably one of the most controversial episodes we've had because seeing how everyone's reacting on Twitter.
Oh my god.
It's gonna will be very interesting.
It's gonna be interesting. No, it's not. It's gonna be unbearable.
Hello.
How you
Andy,
doing, man?
I'm worried for you, Andy. You've
Why is
changed. You've changed. All these intellectuals, Andy, on the show. What is happening? I remember.
That is a
where
fucking
this show
obnoxious
was
accent.
a stepping stone between a trash can and the Drunken Peasants podcast.
That is a really obnoxious accent.
Yeah, a lot of people on Twitter had some opinions. We got Richard Spencer. What's up, man?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. We got Sticks here as well. What's up, Sticks?
Grand Nazi gatekeeper tuning in.
There it is.
Sorry guys, can you let me know
representing the liberal side
The
of things?
Nazis.
how it's if the yeah. Who is this guy? He's fucking obnoxious. I've never seen any of his shit. Like, I don't even know who this guy is. Oh no. Oh no, Muffin. Muffin.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There were some people who gave me a fair shake, and then they are viciously attacked by their colleagues and former friends for even allowing me on their program and even just having a conversation with me.
I frankly find his voice unbearable.
If it were just a vitriolic attack and name calling and screaming and so on, maybe that would have been acceptable. But have me on for a conversation is verboten.
Verboten.
Actually, a lot of people.
Can we debate some leftists? Sure. I've never watched Sticks. Okay, I'm gonna give a... Okay, let me know if I'm louder than them, just because I'm gonna talk over this, because I'm not gonna pause it, because this thing is fucking too long.
I'm not saying that. I'm just not qualified, I think, to talk about certain subjects. And I want people who can. And first of all, I want to say real fast.
Dude, that Nazi man. Dude, I got these Nazis on my show. I got these liberals on my show, man. And I prefer a penne. Oh man, I like these conversations.
Everyone about yourself.
They are far
My name is
out
Richard
there.
Spencer. I am a co-editor at altright.com.
Your shitty
I am
website.
President of the National Policy Institute. I'm actually the editor of the recently relaunched radixjournal.com.
Dude, why would I watch
Throughout
this?
my
It's 4
career,
fucking
I have,
hours long.
Launched a number of
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, because a lot of the times people don't necessarily get it, but like I'm gonna play up how angry I am at this and like just tear people apart. Um, I just like no, but like I just like I'm just gonna I go over the top, like just I'm not 100% serious because people sometimes watch my stuff and they think I'm like 100% serious when I talk about
Intellectual
things.
sites like this. I've spoken at conferences, some libertarian conferences, many racialist conferences as well.
Okay, I'm going to turn up the
Hosted many of
speed.
these
This is
conferences.
already unbearable.
I have been on more podcasts than I can remember. I've been publicly punched by Antifa. I'm sure some people have heard about that one.
Oh.
I've been in the news over the past year and a half or so. It's been a really wild ride with the Trump phenomenon. And just this general alt-right phenomenon as well. So
no, like
it's been a
I
crazy
only
10
am
years
watching
since
this
I
because
dropped out of
people
graduate
asked me
school
to.
in 2007,
Yeah.
and went off on my own and originally started working at the American Conservative, which is a small
Is it loud
small
enough?
publication, that was anti-war, I would say,
'Cause
but
let me
conservative. And then I
turn
went
this
off
up
on
a
my own.
bit.
And in 2010, I actually created a website called AlternativeRight.com. That was
Okay, I'm gonna skip it. I can't
one of
watch
the
this.
first
This is
time
too boring.
that down in the leftist mind by community, by history, by race, religion, the past, the one's duty to the future, etc. So the left is fundamentally individualist. This is the problem with American conservatives. They get this fundamentally wrong. They'll oh, we're individualists. The ISI is a stupid,
Okay, let me just go back a
group
little.
for,
I skipped ahead too much.
So it was a liberal starting point.
Oh, okay.
You could say, and a Cold War starting
People want me to skip it,
point.
so
That floated this way and that floated over to
I
Iraq
want to hear
in some
Sargon.
cases, and just became a total disaster and didn't conserve anything. A conservative has to conserve something. A conservative is ultimately a collectivist in that sense. A conservative is someone who is conserving his class, his people, the state itself. He is an institutionalist in that sense. It's actually the left that is individualistic. Even when the left attempts to use collectivist economic means, it's still in the name of individualism. It's still in an attempt to reach a deracinated, pure individual who's not weighed down in the leftist mind by community, by history, by race, religion, the past, the one's duty to the future, etc.
Can you increase
so the
the
left
speed?
is
Okay.
fundamentally individualist. This is the problem with American.
I can't hear a damn thing. I don't know. I'll put this up to maximum, maybe. Just okay.
It's fundamentally wrong. Oh, we're individualists. The ISI is a stupid fuddy-duddy group for closeted homosexual Catholics or conservatives, I guess. And it used to be called the International or the Individualist Society Institute or something, some nonsense like that. Society of Individualists. They always wanted to base their belief system in the individual and individualism. That is fundamentally wrong. Man is, as a political animal, man is a social being. He's part of a greater family. He's part of a past and a future. He is part of an identity that is bigger than any individual. And so the starting point for the alt-right is that question. Who are we? Who am I? Identity.
So that's very interesting, this interaction between individualism and the left and the opposition that you proposed there. I remember Sargon of Akkad being surprised at me, stating that I was not so much of I'm a libertarian, but I'm not so much of an individualist, because I recognize that individuals can adhere to groups. They can use their liberty to adhere to groups, and then the group can become a very important aspect of their identity. Would you define as a libertarian, and do you see, just like me, that there's no transgression there between being a libertarian and not being an individualist?
Is that for me or Sargon?
Yeah, for you, Richard, and then I'd love to hear Sargon about this.
Sure, I'm not a libertarian. I think a lot of libertarian energies in the United States were masked conservatism. So many people who claim to be a libertarian simply wanted to get the welfare state off their back, thought that the welfare state was pro-black or anti-traditional values, and maybe they were right about that. And so they were anti-government more than they were truly libertarian. And their idea was that we would get rid of the state, and then these communities would flourish.
I'm gonna
this is a kind of right-wing libertarianism. You can see this in a lot of people who got behind Ron Paul and people in the Mises Institute or so on. There is a left-wing libertarianism which does not really come from that basis, that thinks that the
His
individual is
podcast was
sacrosanct, and we
unbearable
need to
because
ever
Colin
expand
Liddell
what
was on it,
individuality
and my hatred
means.
of Colin
But no,
Liddell
I'm
is
not a
well
libertarian in the
known.
sense that,
I think it
though I
is, at
oppose
least.
many
He
actions
is
of the
the
government, I
fucking
think the
worst.
state is an existential entity. There will always be a state. One entity will be sovereign. One entity will be able to use violence. And the question really is what and who? Who is in charge of this existential entity, the state?
Okay, I'm
And
not gonna.
so I'm
I'll
not a
turn it
libertarian
down
in that
because
sense,
I'm
although,
not pausing
maybe
when I
in a basic
comment.
sense I'm a libertarian,
just not.
less government or whatever, but not in a
This is
crucial
4
fundamental
hours.
sense.
Excellent. I think we should do intros for Stick and Sargon as well. Sticks, do you want to do an intro for yourself, maybe your political views, so we know where everyone's standing on this right now?
Yes, as far as the most crucial issues that are being spoken
I
of
actually
today,
liked
essentially, I
Sargon
would
back before
consider
he used
myself
to
be
do
basically a libertarian.
the posting
which
the
is to
gay
say,
interracial porn.
I see the world
I found
slightly
that
in the same sense
unbearable.
I think that Richard Spencer does on One Token, and I've spoken of this. And that's that I think everyone at this point, unless they're really part of the totally mind-numbed establishment, they realize that there are problems in the world and that the sort of answers that have been given to us by the so-called
I can't take it. This is unbearable.
Let's just.
You
I want to hear
obey-
Sargon's though, because it's going to be
You
cringe.
obey traffic laws and you pay your tax.
liberals who have started every war of the last 100 years, honestly. So in that sense, I'd be libertarian, constitutionalist, classical liberal, libertarian nationalist. You could put any of those labels in there. I don't think there's any single label, though, that really encompasses it all. And I don't really like to use categories either. It's like my religious views, pagan or whatever. I kind of shy away from that because then other people that don't like me will try to transmogrify that label just as they do to everything else. And really, it's really a dishonest.
Okay.
So I try to avoid that.
I kind of want to hear the Who
Perfect.
is Right.
And, hey, what's up, Sargon? How you doing, buddy?
Hello. How's everyone today? Sorry, I'm late.
Good. Yeah, man. So you want to give yourself an introduction and what you feel like your political views are, and just
Okay, well, I would just call myself an English liberal. I'm for Enlightenment individualistic liberalism, which I realize that in America.
Oh
that's
my
a
god, his
contentious
voice
term,
is
liberalism.
just the
But in
worst.
Europe, it actually still means liberalism rather than progressivism.
It still means liberalism in Europe.
But I think most people listening would be pretty familiar with my political philosophies.
Actually, nobody
Yeah, for
knows
sure.
what your political... Like no one is familiar with his political philosophy. Like, does anyone know what Sargon, actually believes? Nobody knows what he actually believes. He just makes vague references to random shit. He doesn't have an ideology. I can't figure out what it is. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
just
a lot of
dumb.
people-
Aspect that I'd like to hear you on, Sargon, is you're basically rejecting identitarianism, right?
Yes, absolutely. But
You
I'm
are
actually
English.
really curious about your "I'm a collectivist and an individualist" statement. If I can derail things very quickly,
for sure.
I
go
would
ahead.
love to hear your explanation of that again because I don't remember you telling me that.
I didn't say that. I mean,
Jeff, sorry.
You're talking about me? Yeah, well, it was on the interview on my channel. You can go rewatch it. It was...
No, I believe you. I just can't remember offhand.
Yeah, it was libertarianism. I was talking about libertarianism, and you said, well, you're a libertarian, you should be individualist. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a libertarian, but I'm a special type of libertarian. I recognize levels of existence both below the individual, which are the genes that compose us, and above the individuals, which are the groups that we accept to join. And we
With regards
tonight.
with regards to Sargon, back when I watched Millennial Yule, how I kind of felt about him was I felt like some of his conversations with Millennial Woes were actually fairly productive. And I actually kind of felt like he was actually open-minded and he was kind of coming over to our point of view. But then, after all that progress, he immediately just posted gay interracial porn and just went fucking crazy. With counter-signaling. So that's kind of why I hate him, because I think he's a hypocrite. I think that he's just not a very good person. And I think he's an e-beggar, because he gets so much fucking money from people. Back before, I'm sure he set his Patreon to private mode. But this dude was making so much money back in the day.
We're simply describing the fact that aristocracies emerge in any society. And one question that I didn't have the time to ask to Sargon would be, are you against the transfer of wealth between billionaire parents to billionaire children? Because if you are not against that, then you are supporting a system that maintains aristocracy in a capitalistic society.
Cool. All right, and we'll set up some more future.
He was
debates and all
making
that
like
stuff.
$300,000 to $500,000 or something
Everyone's
back
asking
in the
me,
day.
Jim, if you're watching, Mr. Medicare, people want you to jump in.
Okay, I'm gonna say something else. I never understood the fascination with Mr. Medicare. I mean, it's just like, has he ever made like a legitimate political point? Like, he just kind of makes videos trolling people. I don't get it.
And just give your final thoughts. I'll send him the link. If he jumps in, if you want, just jump in for 2 minutes. People love
Dude, we need Mr. Medicare
on.
on.
Watching the entire
The
stream.
kids like Mr. Medicare.
Dude, finish that video.
Dude.
Finish that part 4 of the Crown video.
Finish it, dude.
I'll bring in Jim. Everyone, base Jim. We'll have him in. I'll start pounding.
Oops, sorry.
This
Just fucking.
If Jim jumps in, that'd be
fucking
awesome. And I know my
channel
mouth will get dry at some point, so maybe we'll do a
Feel
trade
free to
back
put
and
that
forth.
on this. Yeah, feel free to put that on the stream. On the screen.
Yeah. Let's do. Hang on. Let me make sure that I had more questions from the audience, but literally, man, there was questions from @replies, DMs, super chats. Very, very difficult. Oh, there he is, Billy. Oh, sorry, it's not Jim. Fuck, Billy.
Billy the anti-bully.
Yeah, anti-bully. I don't know why I keep saying Jim. Stupid. Hey, Jim. I mean, fuck, Billy.
Holy shit! Come on, Adam. Get the name.
There I go, Billy. So some final thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, my final thought is: did you actually just say on live stream that you'd suck?
Okay. What? Wait. Why did this fucking jump ahead? How the fuck did that happen? I don't know. Maybe this just sucked so much. Anyways, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So this is funny. This is Sargon. We're just going to go off because this is just so fucking boring. I can't take it. But on Sargon, he has Vivictus, my game channel, and it got shut down for copyright infringement. This account has been terminated. Oh, it's funny. Let's see if his Patreon is up here. Also, let's look at his channelytics. So, Sargon of Akkad makes... Come on, just let me look at it. Let me just find Social Blade for Sargon. Okay, so on Patreon, Sargon of Akkad gets $8,000 fucking dollars a month. Is how much this asshole gets. I mean, just think about that for a minute. Sargon of Akkad is creating arguments. This dude makes... Let me just... Sorry, I'm slow tonight. Let's see, that's 8. It's 12. This asshole makes like 100 grand a year on Patreon. Let's see how much he makes on YouTube. Okay, Sargon makes an estimated like another 100. Well, it's inaccurate, so I just take a middle one. So like $150,000 a year on YouTube. Let's see here. Okay, so Sargon just makes so much money. And I think he's complained in the past that like he doesn't make enough cash. I don't think he takes donations. If he does, then that's just... No, he has a tip jar too. He also has a tip jar. I don't know if he has merch too. So this dude probably makes like $300, 300 grand a year or something like that.
You could do it in a myriad of different ways, one of which is a 23andMe test, one of which...
Okay, I'm going to skip. Somebody said to skip to 40 minutes.
High percentage of chance of being right, that they have most of their ancestors come from Africa. And given that this is true, and that there is information, why would it be a problem if the information is imperfect? Why would it be a problem if some laws are classified in a racial classification, if the majority can be properly classified?
Okay, as Styx pointed out earlier and Richard assented to, this is going to not only be a very messy process, but lead into purity spiraling, where whatever it is, whatever the group, the movement, the nation, will start self-consuming on the basis that power will be achieved through racial purity. And that just leads you down a road that you don't really want to go down.
What the fuck does that even mean?
It's going to end in blood. I think it's a much worse solution to the problem of anything, really. What is that going to be a solution to?
Can I
that the ethno-nationalists are...
into
Yeah,
anyone who's not a pure Pole must be killed. Is that a problem in Poland right now?
Did I say that anyone who's not a pure Pole would be killed?
well, you talked about violence, and I don't see the
Absolutely.
ethno-nationalists
The
talking
question
about
is purity spiraling necessary? I mean, sure, I can imagine a purity spiral. Sure, that's one possibility.
Well,
I can imagine a whole
many.
host of other things.
Yeah, but do you not think that's a problem? Setting up a system
be a
that's
problem,
inherently
sure.
going to fail.
It could be a problem, sure. A purity
It will be a
spiral,
problem.
I don't think
You're
so.
already having
Thank
these
you for your
problems.
foreknowledge of history.
You're
The
welcome.
thing is, Sargon, there is
You're
a point
already
at
having
which
these
purity,
problems in the alt-right. That's the thing.
you arrive at a point at which purity spiraling would be meaningless for anyone. You would arrive at a point where you would be unsatisfied that Richard Spencer is really white, and you'd be like, well, to what extent does that information serve me? And I think that's what ethno-nationalists are proposing, and I hear that from Tara McCarthy, I hear that from Richard. It's that they will not engage into a purity spiral. In fact, I hear a lot of openness about having borders of diversity that are not super pure. They are very open at the idea that there would be mixed race people in the ethno state, and they would be tolerated.
I don't want to destroy. I don't want to destroy the natural diversity within the white race. The fact is, there is major differences between a Russian and a Scotsman, or a Scotsman and an Italian, an Italian and an Estonian. I think these differences are beautiful. I actually don't really have a problem, to be honest, when you have a mix of a German and an Italian. I think sometimes that kind of mixing of different types within the white race can produce something beautiful, actually. I don't believe in purity spirals. In terms of I've met people
Yeah, but
who
whether you
are
believe in
mixed
them or not
race.
is kind of irrelevant. They're already happening in the alt-right.
You're describing the alt-right. We're talking about the ethno-state. I mean, you're describing,
Will
yes, are there
theoretically
people
be
purity
based on the
spiraling on
alt-right's philosophy,
Twitter?
surely.
You're literally making this argument. People are purity spiraling on Twitter, therefore the ethno-state will inherently purity spiral into a bloodbath. That
Why
just
do you think
simply
the
does not
communists shoot
follow.
each other?
Does not follow, Sargon.
It absolutely follows. The idea that you think a political purity spiral
doesn't
could
logically
the
follow,
country
by the way.
won't end.
Okay, to be fair, Sargon actually has a point here. If you spent much time in these circles, it's there is so much purity spiraling in these circles. It's delusional to think there isn't.
End up in people getting shot is absolutely hilarious to me.
Okay.
And no matter how much you try to brush this off,
it doesn't
it's not something
logically
that's going
follow.
away.
No, it
Can I
kind
ask
of
a
does.
It absolutely does.
Do you understand
Spencer,
formal
ask
Do
a
logic?
you
question?
understand anything that I've said? Do you understand a word I've said?
Can I,
Because you
Spencer?
literally said, I don't understand what you're saying. It's all autistic as far as I can see.
All right.
Well,
It's
Anyone who
not
understands
very
any of these
powerful
first
what you're
Let me
principles
ask a
understands what I'm
question.
saying.
Let me ask a question. Spencer, how would you implement the ethno-state without people getting killed?
People came here peacefully, therefore they could potentially leave peacefully.
Oh, all right, potentially, but what about the people who wouldn't want to leave peacefully?
Look, first off, there are many ways that this could be implemented completely peacefully. And actually, there are historical precedents for the creation of ethnostates. The Paris Peace Conference of 1919, following the First World War, was a redrawing of the map according to ethno-determinism. So there was a reinvention of Poland. There was a creation of new states like Yugoslavia. There was population transfers that were done by force, but were actually peaceful. So this can be done. It has been done in the past. There's been massive amounts of migration through planes, trains, and automobiles and ships. And this could be done peacefully.
But
could
the state
people be
but the
could
political
people be
state right now,
enticed to
though,
leave?
But the political state right now in the states right now, everything's really heated. Do you really think most people would leave peacefully? Especially
Dude, you think they'd leave
just
peacefully?
the politics as it is right now.
I don't know, man. They're
I
attracted to
recognize
local
the degree
sports
to
ball.
which my concept of an ethnostate is way out in front. It's on the crest of the wave. It's way out in front. Is this politically possible right this instance?
No.
Absolutely not. Is this going to happen next election cycle? No. This is something that we have to be thinking about theologically in the sense of an ultimate goal that is possible and that we want to channel our energies towards. It is an ideal in that sense. So in the sense of, look, can people be enticed to leave? Yes, absolutely. Recent immigrants can be paid, given cash handouts to return to their countries. Could we, through imperialism, create new ethno-states for people? Could we therefore create an African-American homeland that would actually have sovereignty? It's kind of similar, although different. And
That sounds kind of like
fundamentally
LARP to
the
me.
reservation
It would be
system of
nice,
creating
but
homelands for the American Indians. Could we create these ethno-states for other races through imperialism? We absolutely could. At the end of the day, might the government have to use some kind of force? Could it use this humanely? I think the answer is yes. All of these things are possible. It's really a question of will. The government uses force all the time.
That's the real problem. It's really probable that none of this will go the way you think it will go. Really probable. In fact, it's really probable that this will completely collapse before you even finish what you're trying to achieve.
Okay. Even Hitler himself, if you'll probably understand this, referred to the idea of an eternal camp for an eternal struggle. So even if you were to achieve white imperialistic ethnostate, carve the world up in such a way, you wouldn't have stability. So you just end up going through the whole friggin' thing again. So.
Well, I do agree.
In that ways, you sound like a right-wing version of Peter Kropotkin. You sound like you've got this utopian dream that you want to achieve without any violence, but you are aware that there are probably going to be other political actors within your movement, like, I don't know, the sort of Daily Stormer types, who are more than happy to use violence. Who's putting a bullet in the back of who at that point, do you think? You know? And Kropotkin could at least acknowledge.
I can acknowledge that history can become very difficult. History itself is a slaughter bench. I mean, I can acknowledge the fact that history is not pretty. And I can acknowledge that it's not just the ethno-state ideal. There are going to be competing versions of the world for who is going to rule the planet after the fall of the American Empire. Muslims have an idea. They have an idea of what they want to see. I don't want to see that. And there's going to be, the Chinese have an idea, which has certain advantages and many disadvantages, to say the least. There are going to be competing visions of who will rule the planet after the fall of American unipolar,
Okay, here's the thing that I'm just going to say, this is kind of an issue I have with a lot of white nationalists in the New World, is I think what they don't understand is the concept of whiteness is a New World thing. It's something that grew out of... It grew out of the experience of settler states, and I've talked about this a lot of times in the past. To me, I kind of think the concept of whiteness is, I mean, it does exist in a racial sense, but the idea of it in kind of an ethno-cultural sense is a New World thing, be it Australia, be it South Africa to a certain extent, be it Canada or America, because kind of how we define white people is people who are mixed European. So I would define myself in that sense. Like, I think there is an ethnic American people, and the ethnic American people are mixed European. But it's if you go to people in Europe and you try to talk to them about this whole concept of white nationalism, I think to a large extent they're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I hate those. Like, you talk to the Hungarians, and they're like, well, I hate those Slovakians. It's kind of a New World concept to a certain extent.
American unipolar world. And what I am saying is that we need our vision, that those who have a passion and a will to implement a vision are going to be the winners in this. If we decide to all be individualistic liberals and say, oh, we don't want to play that game, we're so afraid of the state, we're so afraid of violence that we don't want to play that game, those people will ultimately be slaves. Those people will ultimately be subjugated to those who are willing to use the state, willing to use force, and who have a bold vision of the future and the will to enact it.
Right, so you're willing to use the state, you're willing to use force, and you're pretty sure you're going to get shot in the back by one of your more violent comrades. Why would anyone take your path anyway?
Well, I did answer this in a way, and what I'm saying is that we live at the end of an American unipolar empire, an inheritance of the British Empire to a degree no.
That's an opinion, though.
Okay, let's not get caught up on that opinion. But I think we would all actually agree that we are in a late stage of this American unipolar world. What I am saying is that
most people would agree with that.
If you simply don't want to play this game in favor of liberalism or individualism, all that means is that you're going to be someone else's subject. That the people who are willing to act collectively, who have boldness and a vision, are going to ultimately win. And this is a Machiavellian point, in the sense that one must be a little bit evil in order to combat evil.
But that's the whole point of, I think, why some would oppose identitarianism. They're worried that it will be, in the process of implementing it and perhaps thereafter, will be abusive. In fact, if people aren't, oddly enough, a strange point to make because I hate wedge issues, if people aren't broken up by things like that within the context of a civic structure, and they feel racially homogenous, Wouldn't a person simply, in order to abuse that population, simply happen to be well-spoken and a member of that race? And Sargon's point, I think, still stands, which is you and McCarthy and others may not have a problem with, like, you know, some Italian person. They've got one Arabic great-grandparent, but they're going to look white. You don't care. Others will care. The problem is that those people, if they manage to seize power,
this is
which will happen
unbearable.
within a civic structure from time to time, it has
I hate
history,
four-way
they
debates.
can then exploit that for their own gain. It's the fact is power corrupts. It's not going to stop corrupting because it's a white person governing other white people. So you need, if you had a libertarian identitarian state, maybe you could survive that fact. But there's always still going to be that
The same
tendency
thing happens.
towards growth of government.
Look, in your idealistic libertarian order, there's going to be some fanatical libertarian
There's
who
nothing,
wants to stamp
nothing
out
at all idealistic
collectivism.
about this. You're the one with the idealistic position here.
A
We
fanatic-
live in a
a
liberal
fanatic-
order that has universal
That's a
rights
funny-
at the moment, Richard.
A fanatic
funny
libertarian,
You're
a
the
fanatic
idealist.
libertarian becomes an anarchist.
I have a challenge here. I have a challenge to give
That's
to
what I-
Sargon and Stick. Because what Richard
I
says
thought you were
here
a
makes
moderator
sense.
rather than a
This
participant.
is
No,
this
what
is
I do is that
unbearable.
I make the discussion
Like,
advance
I
in the
knew
way
this was
believe
gonna be
intellectually is the
bad,
most
but-
You
interesting.
seem to be defending Richard. It's always
But you
question for me.
can remove me as a
Oh.
moderator and count me in as an interested agent. I do not care. I'm interested in making this discussion the most intellectually enriching ever that we've had on this stream. So I'm working on that. Now my challenge to Sargon and Styx is the critique that you make of Richard's racial views to say, well, okay, you want an ethno-state, it's going to lead to people eventually stabbing you in the back. Can't the same critique be given to the current state of Western societies? Can't the same critique be given to multiculturalism? Maybe, Sargon, one day you'll get Muslims stabbing you in the back, don't you think?
Yeah, but it'll never be sanctioned by the state. If
I
a
don't know
Muslim
about
stabs you in
that
the
one.
back, that Muslim will be punished for it.
Oh yeah, but what
Why?
happens
happens if there's a Muslim majority in UK or Canada in 100 years or 500 years?
Oh, right. Okay. So what we're saying is it's not how we live now. Then I mean that's fine. And if you want to accept that what I'm saying is the most moral position to take on this and change the discourse, the context in which we're talking, then fine.
We're
But we're
talking
not
about the
talking about
future.
that
The ethno
What
state
the
as I
fuck
described
does
it
that
does not
even
exist
mean?
right now? It has certain
Yeah,
precedents,
I'm
but
aware.
Like what? Like, let me go back. What? I don't even. I don't know. Maybe am I dumb for having trouble
talking about
following
the
this?
There are
you were
ethno
talking about the
states.
future, saying, "Oh, you'll inherently purity spiral," and
Yeah,
people
but
will
this
say
is an
that Richard
inevitable
Spencer's not
consequence
white.
of the principles you're laying out, as you have admitted.
There's an
I'm
ethno
saying-
state. It's called Robert Mugabe runs one and kicked out the last few white people out and inherited a famine. But the problem is that it's abusive and
Africans.
leads to you becoming a pariah. Well, see, there you go. Then you're bringing up like the inequality thing. The thing that I've already said is this, and I've said this for years. I don't believe in
Is
censoring
this, like-
identitarians.
Is this a debate on the ethno state? I know I skipped a bit in, but that's because the introductions were so rambling. Hopefully they'll move on to an actual point eventually.
Don't believe in abusing identitarians. And if someone wants to associate with members of their own race only, so be it. If they want to make it a cultural movement, so be it. But when you bring it to the level of an actual nation state, which simply has race overlapping, it still is going to suffer from the same excesses. But in implementing it in a state that wasn't already basically an ethno state to begin with, you're going to get a purge. And it could collapse. Look, communists could take over and force to...
Okay, so what does the ethno state mean? Does it mean like a specific white state? In that case, what it would be is, oh, I got Elric Avatara saying Norman race, Norman pride. I'm also of Norman descent. Well, on my father's side, Norman descent. I have a little remainder of that. I have 3% European. So is the ethno state like a pan-white state? Is it like the United States of Europe? Is it just anything like that? I don't even know. Okay, the ethno state is for whites, but what does that mean? Does that mean like a French ethno state? Does that mean okay, here's kind of like what I think, to be honest. So I think what I'd like is the various European states to become ethno-states of their own ethnicity, and I'd like an ethno-state in North America to be a pan-white, they're kind of to be that, kind of this mixed white thing within the United States and to a certain extent Canada. Because as I've said, I kind of think this pan-white identity is kind of a new world thing. I'm not saying Europeans don't understand the reality of race. I'm just saying, I think trying to go and tell them that you're 3% lost my train of thought there. That you guys are all the same because you're white is kind of a, I don't know if it's entirely true, but as I've said, I identify as North American or American despite living in Canada. I think we do have a particular New World culture. I think we do have a New World ethnic identity. We have all that kind of stuff. So I think it's different. I don't know. People seem to take it out of context or misunderstand. I think there is a thing as American. And I very much disagree with this idea that there's no identity. There's all kinds of things.
First,
part of the
you throw
identity.
at the barrel of a gun, you'd be a slave.
I agree to the extent that there is always that chance of corruption. All I would say is that even in the state that Styx was describing, I think Styx.
Why are we even talking about an ethno state? Get on to like something interesting. Get on to, actually, I can trace my lineage back to William the Conqueror's times. That kind of thing, which is cool. Let me see here. Show me where on a DNA test it says American. Well, if you look at DNA tests, they often have trouble telling Germans and French apart. Ethnicity is a somewhat mercurial concept. I'm just saying it's not, these things aren't like 100% black and white. They're very much kind of I don't know. I just, whatever I'm saying is going to get
correct me if I'm
slammed.
wrong. You would want to live in a kind of,
some people want me
libertarian
to
order,
say all this other
constitutional order,
stuff.
but it's,
Some people want me to
live
say
and
other
let live
things.
kind of thing. Even in that kind of order, that is, you're describing America to a very large degree. Even in that type of order, there is a chance for corruption. There's a chance for abuse. There's a chance for fanatics to get in charge. Fanatical libertarians.
It's the inevitability. It's not a chance. It's inevitability.
Well,
look at Sarkeesian leading the feminists or something. It's people who project. They're opportunists. They're attracted to power because they want money and they want cars and sex and all these things. It's a human nature. They're the ones that will inevitably end up in control. Only if you properly constrain the state does that stop being so much of a problem, and it is at least tempered.
I don't think you can properly constrain the state. What are you going to constrain it with, a paper document like the Constitution? How is that constrained?
You constrain it with that plus a strong civic order, which we had in the United States before Marxists influenced things. But you don't fight them by saying, "Hey, we're going to be white." There are white Marxists.
America's been corrupted as well.
You argue for single payer.
What would you constrain it with? I really want to know. Would you constrain it with men in jackboots with guns? How would you constrain it?
And you argue for things like single payer.
Other than the Constitution, which is what every state has had since the dawn of time. Go on.
Would it constrain what?
You were literally just saying that you can't constrain government power with a piece of paper. You were mocking the idea. Okay, how do you do it?
Government power is constrained by, as Styx said, a strong civic order and people who want to push back against government power. It's ultimately not constrained by the law. The law is an articulation.
Once again, am I like weird for finding this hard to follow?
It's basically a civic order of a
because I find this really hard to follow, like what they're even talking about.
Constrain the state. Did you just say
no?
That?
Yes, I did.
Like, it's constrained so long as that legal architecture is supported by the people within that civic state.
Okay. Wow, you're thinking thoughts that you've never thought before. The law is an articulation of power. It's an articulation of the state. It does not constrain the state. Yes, I believe that. So do many other legal theorists you've never read.
The functions of the various institutions of the states to uphold their own rules, laws, and norms. But do you not think that people will do that in a liberal state? Sorry.
Okay.
I think
what the hell what are they even talking about? Like, I don't know. Are they talking about like libertarianism? Are they talking about the state? Are they like? It's just, this is unbearable. It's like, I don't know. It's, I feel like what you should do is, okay, there shouldn't be more than 2 points of view in a debate. I'm sorry, there just shouldn't be more than two. So they should have gotten a team. They should have done Richard and Millennial Woes versus Sargon, and I have no idea what Stykes, whatever his name's hammer makes sense. But yeah,
ethnostate, there will be a strong sense among white people. White people are attracted to, for better and for worse, they're attracted to a sense of uprightness and individualism, of their own personal rights, their own duties, their own plot of land. That there will be a strong social pushback against any kind of encroachment on all of these wonderful things about society by an overweening state. But
Why
I would
did it
agree.
happen in
I'm
the Soviet
basically
Union then?
granting, because I'm an honest person, I'm granting.
okay,
Sticks
even if
the
it's not
point in
supposed
the
to be a
sense
debate,
that,
it still
yes,
sucks as
life
a
is struggle.
discussion.
Everything's going to be born and flourish and then go into decadence and decay and die, and you have to rebuild it again. This is what life's about. Every state will reach a state of corruption and decadence. That's built in. But the question is, can there be a new order that will safeguard the white race, that will lead to greater flourishing for European people than ever before, where we could reach the stars?
Yes.
Can we create that kind
Listen,
of order?
yes, it already existed. It was called the United States. The problem is the United States has been degraded by collectivism, by increasing bureaucracy. The individualism didn't kill the U.S. It wasn't killed by.
Okay, can someone tell me what Styx Axis or whatever his name is, like what his opinion is? Because I have like no idea what it is, to be perfectly honest. I don't know. I've just never been able to watch his videos.
Capitalism. We're not in late capitalism. We're in late socialism. If we have problems, it's because the government right now taxes half of what people make. It tells people what they can do from the moment that they're born to the moment they die. It levies every possible fee, creates every possible bureaucracy, and strangles itself. That's why we're having problems in this world. That's why a bunch of opportunists can play craptivist and say, hey, we need to censor all these other groups because we need to maintain the retarded status quo, which is exactly what it is. But the thing is, that was formed by white people when the United States was overwhelmingly right. You push for, like, one of the things that you push for is single payer, which is like the god of all bureaucratic programs. We tried that in our homogeneously white, it's like 98% white state.
People have compared me to
left
Styx a lot. I don't know why.
Not wanting it because they couldn't even pay for it. I just don't understand. You're relegating the civic structure, the fiscal structure, everything to the back burner in favor of the racial argument.
I don't even know like what's going on. Like, okay, so you have Styx who's doing like some rant about libertarian economics. You have Richard Spencer who's talking about the ethno-state, and you have Sargon who's talking about, I don't know, he's just being smug. So you have like 3 or 4 or 5 people, none of whom are really addressing any of the other people's points. And it's just like, this is supposed to be a good, like a big deal. And it's embarrassing. I don't. People were saying Spencer smoked Sargon. I don't think he's doing good at all.
It doesn't make things magically better. It doesn't make things all rainbows anyway. How are you going to convince people, therefore, the average person? And this is just an honest question. No moral entanglement at all. How do you convince people then that that's something that they would want to pledge themselves to at the hazard of a possible like civil war, literally collapse of their entire culture?
Okay, there's a lot here, but let me try to pick up some of these pieces. The United States did reach the stars. We at least reached the moon in 1969, and I would say between the First World War,
I actually think Styx is okay. You know what? I actually think Styx has the most coherent like argument in this. He is at least putting forward a coherent ideology, and I have to give libertarianism some credit for this. Styx is like actually putting forward a coherent, like I actually kind of get what he's saying. It makes no sense, but
1965, civil rights and immigration acts, the Great Society, America achieved things that were seemingly impossible, that were almost unimaginable previously. Within a half century, we went from the creation of the airplane to sending a man to the moon. This is remarkable. This coincided, and I don't think it just coincided, I think it was caused to a great degree with a racialist ethno-state immigration policy that began in 1924. There was a specifically not only racialist but Nordicist immigration policy that was inspired by Madison Grant and similar people who were interested in the conservationist and eugenics
America's
movement.
immigration policy put a man on the moon, Mr. Argent.
I just said that no. You know, Sargon, I'm not as dumb as
seem to
you
have
are,
connected the
actually.
two
I
things.
didn't
That's
say
a
that.
little bit of a stretch, Sargon.
Sargon, I just said that it coincided, and I actually think
Well, you did say
that
it was causal,
wasn't.
didn't you?
I don't think, obviously, I don't think an immigration act put a man on the moon. Are you this fucking moronic, Sargon? I expected a lot better. I'm not going to address any more of these.
Well, how's that
I'm not
going to
address any more of these nitpicking. It's just
think about the things you're
stupid.
saying? Do you think about the
Do
internal
you think
consistencies you're at?
so? Why didn't Ghana reach the stars, Sargon? Why didn't Liberia reach the stars? Why after they had a liberal?
I guess it was because they were black, Richard. I guess it was just because they were black.
They didn't have enough Nazi scientists.
Yeah, right.
No, but think about it.
Okay, this would be a good time to make an argument about like IQ or something like this. Like, I don't know why Spencer said that the immigration policy didn't put a man on the moon, because it kind of did.
Since that period where we went to the moon, we've also accomplished great things despite being in the early stage. Of course, not really multicultural. Everyone's at each other's throats on a racial basis, no less. We've done plenty of stuff since then. If you look at the tech that they had, like in the 50s or 60s, compared to all of human endeavor being encompassed on a few supercomputers, I mean, my goodness, there's basically no comparison. We can do great things now, and I'll say this again. It's not about what was, and it's not about if you were arguing, Richard.
Okay, I just want to ask a question, because this has been floated. Would anybody like to see me and some of my friends playing like sessions of Varg's D&D ripoff? I'm just going to ask about that, just because maybe I'll do that for like 5,000 subs or something like that, because I think that would be funny.
For saying, hey, we're going to ban everyone who's not white from immigrating to the U.S., haha. I wouldn't, by the way, even care. Because that's not abusing anybody who's already part of our civic structure. Go ahead, build the wall, preclude them all from coming, kick out any anchor babies, whatever. But what about people who are already here? And let's say, because this is what would happen, let's say that most of them don't want to take your money or don't want to just listen to you when you say, well, leave, because we're white only now, blacks in the back. It's no colored only signs anymore. What about those some tens of millions of people who wouldn't want to leave? And what about those who are friends with them, family with them, who are white, who would take up arms to defend them? You're looking at more than half the population probably there. You're not looking at, you wouldn't even have a majority of the population on your side. You'd have probably a slim majority at most of just whites within the country. And you'd get you'd get your asses handed to you and hand this country to a bunch of communists in the process.
Look, this is a...
Okay, I'm going to say Styx actually made a really legitimate point there. Like, that was, like, the most coherent thing I've heard in this entire debate. I think Styx is winning, actually. Just because he's able to, like, formulate coherent points and not ramble on forever about nothing.
A legitimate, pragmatic critique of how would the ethno-state arise in, say, the coming decade. I don't think that this is going to happen. The United States is sovereign at this point. We haven't seen this massive paradigm shift. I would just add this into the mix, though. When white people are allowed to vote with their feet, they ultimately want to be in what are approximations of white society. Martin Luther King complained about the fact that 11 a.m. on Sunday is the most segregated hour of the week. The fact is, white people are inherently attracted to themselves, to that kind of lifestyle that only we can bring. I would say the entire world is, actually.
I would agree with most people, yeah.
Refugee crisis is flowing in one direction. It is flowing into Berlin and Munich, and it is not flowing into Ghana.
This is not going to be a subject we're in opposition on, the migrant crisis. But they're not flowing to the east because they're not going to get free money from the east. It's not because we're white. It's because they're stupid enough to give them
It's
money.
not just free money.
I'm just thinking for one quick second.
What is
Sorry, one
Babylon
second.
from their perspective?
JF, check DMs for a sec, dude, if you may.
Okay, I will. That being said, I'd like to introduce a questioning here on the concept that Stick has introduced, and that I think it also corresponds to Sargon's horseshoe theory. So it seems that
It's not my horseshoe theory. This is something that is ascribed to me all the time. It's you guys
Okay.
saying it because you don't understand what I'm saying, because you guys never seem to want to talk about your first principles.
I'll gladly refute
So-
horseshoe theory while holding up part of its main principles.
Okay,
by the way, at some point.
I'm sorry I've initiated this huge parenthesis. I just have a small question. Is it possible that when you guys talk of collectivism, and when you talk of collectivism, looking at the past of America and the current state of America, you are looking at SJWs, you're looking at socialism, you're looking at the socialistic tendencies that are developing within America, you're looking at the left, you're looking at authoritarian control of government over groups, and in fact, giving privileges to groups such as in the form of positive racism or whatever they call it, positive discrimination. I don't know the exact term. Is it possible that this collectivism is different than the collectivism proposed by Richard Spencer here?
I would say, well, go ahead.
Oh,
No, no,
I was gonna say, when I'm gonna send all the questions I've been collecting from Super Chat to JF, and then when we have time, we'll just I only pick the ones that were actual questions. After the show's done, I'll read all the in-between Super Chats. Thank you very much, everyone. It's really overwhelming right now. And JF, if you can just hold the floor for 1 second, I have to use the washroom, all right, bud?
All right.
Okay, let me address the collectivism individualism dichotomy. Because this is something that I get the feeling that a lot of collectivists don't really understand. It's just about the primary value. So are the rights of the individual superseding the rights of the collective? It's that simple. And if you, I'm sure even you can understand this, Richard, right? So, like, what I'm saying is, at some point, you will, despite the lack of any sort of existential threat or any real any real need, on point of principle, you will find yourself violating the rights of individuals for your ideological
Like,
conception.
I
of
knew
what the
this
white
was going to
race
be
is.
bad.
Do you agree?
I didn't think it was going to be this
Obviously, the rights of the collective supersede the rights of the individual. An individual receives his individual rights by being part of a collective.
No,
I have rights
individual
as
rights if the collective has rights. That's what I'm saying.
that's obviously nonsense.
No, it's obviously
I
true.
have rights. I have rights as an American citizen because I am part of this collective.
This is the
Obviously,
worst debate.
America's an
This is
individualistic
feces.
nation.
This is the worst
Well,
debate
that's
I've
why
ever
you have
seen.
It is and it isn't. I mean,
Individualism
I
is a
agree
value.
with that statement. Yeah, it's right. I mean,
But
it's
it's
a
the highest
value
principle
within
by
it,
which
but it's
your government is
obviously a
run.
collective entity. Not every single human being is an American citizen or can benefit from the rights of being an American.
But Richard, there's something important here to say about collectivism, which is that like when we see videos of you getting like punched in the face and then people don't want to do anything about it, you are being yourself abused by a collective. Individuals aren't abusing you. No individual is capable of censoring you unless they're crazy and they shoot you in the head. But a government can say, well, that Richard Spencer is sure full of hate. We got to keep him from speaking. Or a collective like a tech site can say, well, no, Richard, you can't have a Twitter. You can't be on YouTube. You can't have this podcast on our domain registrar. It requires a group to truly abuse. Like when people are worried about some random alt-right, like people are worried about you. They're like, oh, that evil, scary Richard Spencer. I'm like, what are you so worried about? It's one fucking person. But if there were millions and millions of people gathering into such a state, they could do the same thing. What fundamentally makes your collective, I guess, more stable? Yeah, unless it's true central core values individualism, and if it is, how then do you
I'm gonna
justify
say,
the
like,
purge that you will need?
Sticks, like, I don't agree with him, but Sticks is doing a really good job. He is kicking everyone's ass in this debate. Probably because he's like actually making like a real coherent point.
In order to create your
I
ethos.
agree with you that collectives have more power than the individual, which is basically what you're saying. This is my critique of a lot of the libertarianism that I've heard tonight, is that it seems to exist in an abstract plane in which we want to ask moral questions about should a group have a right over an individual. The fact is, in
That's an important
lived
question.
reality, obviously groups have more power than individuals, and obviously corporate entities, whether they be governments or even Silicon Valley companies or what have you, have power over the individual. Obviously,
That's
these
why we
rights,
have
in
rights.
terms
That's
of
the
me
whole
having more
purpose of rights,
power,
Richard. Well done.
supersede them.
You've actually
The
hit
whole
on something
point of
really
rights. So
important
then
there.
you're admitting
you've
that their
legitimately hit on
rights
the reason
supersede
why
the
we
individual.
need individual rights. It's because of the disproportionate power of entities that don't have any legitimate claim to control an individual or violate their rights.
Why
and
does an
yet still
individual
work.
have a claim to this sanctity of
say
not
again,
being
Mr. Andrews, we're
controlled.
trying to talk
Why
over
does
Okay, I can't take this. Okay, I'm gonna try and explain this. I think what they're getting at. Okay, so this is kind of one of the oldest debates in politics, and I did this a lot when I was studying political science. Is the inherent conflict between individual and group rights. And I think before you get into this, you have to look at what the concept of a right is, because I think there's a couple different ways of describing it. I think there's a theoretical right, and then there's also a practical right, and the two things aren't the same thing. A theoretical right is a moral good. It's a just do a summary the next 20 minutes. I don't even like I don't even know what this was about. So let me just try and go through this, what I think they're talking about. So okay, so a theoretical right to me is a moral good. So it's something like, is it better for people to have food than to not have food? Yes. Is it better for people to not be unjustly put in prison? Yes. Is it better? Like, these things are inherently better than other things. The issue with the concept of rights in a practical sense is the confusion that they're the same thing. And so what tends to happen is you will have constitutions, or just to be able to have the practical right, you have to have a certain amount of power and resources which comes from the collective. So to a certain extent, sorry, I'm just going to close my eyes and not look at the chat and try to explain this. Okay. So you have kind of this theory of, I guess you could say, theoretical or moral rights, and that's kind of enshrined in things like the American Constitution, the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and most modern constitutions. And these lay out a series of moral goods. I think the issue is, historically, I think what rights meant is we should do this if possible. And it's degenerated into what I call a suicide pact. And by a suicide pact, I mean that these rights are put above the ability of the state or the group to deliver on them, and above kind of their utilitarian purpose. So if we talk about like freedom per se, is it better to like allow open immigration and allow like all the refugees to come in and rape everybody, or is it better to not allow them to come in and limit their freedom and limit this lofty ideal that people can move anywhere in favor of the welfare of the nation? So I think what generally speaking, and this is where sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but the idea of the state was, to a certain extent, and this is widely accepted by most political theorists, is you give up a little bit of your individual rights to the collective in favor of getting more rights. You give up a little bit of your theoretical rights to the collective in exchange for getting more political rights in return. So, like, at the very basic, like at the tribal level, what do you give up? You normally give up the right to just kill people. You give up the right to steal from people. You give up the right to do kind of a lot of things that we would consider antisocial, but in return, you get a whole bunch of other practical rights. You have protection from being killed by random people. You have a social structure that will support you. Like if you're sick or something, then other people will help them out, and etc. So kind of what it comes down to is, and the nature of this debate is, at what point does the balance between theoretical, like what is the fulcrum? What is the kind of optimal position between kind of these theoretical rights and these moral goods and kind of the practical ability to deliver on? Because to a certain extent, if you take away, you could say, which was what the Soviets did, we need to enact all of these theoretical principles like equality, or sorry, we need to basically take away people's money and redistribute it. Sorry, I'm kind of not making sense here. I'm kind of rambling. It's I probably should have been more rested when I did this. But basically what Richard Spencer is saying is that in order for any sort of right to exist, you need to have the rights come practical rights come from the collective. There has to be a general agreement, and society has to enforce them in order for them to really have any meaning. Whereas what I think Styx and Sargon are more saying is by attempting to enforce them, by giving up to the collective is inherently more dangerous to your rights than it does more damage than benefits. I think that's what they're trying to get at. And Richard Spencer is saying the issue is we're too individualistic. We have to give up some of kind of our more of our individual freedom to pursue our group identity. It has kind of gone too far in one direction. On the other hand, you have the what's it called again? The counter argument that the current issue is caused by collectivism, by kind of these groups of hurt feelings and these groups of people who were like, oh, I can't take it, so we have to censor. And I think the idea is kind of all things being equal, and kind of the society Styx would want to create. The people would just kind of you would kind of through, and this was kind of getting back to a bit what Hans Hermann Hoppe always talks about with the restrictive covenants and these things just kind of spontaneously happening. Let's see here. The Catholic Church's views on these are kind of complicated. To a certain extent, most worldly issues like this are left up to secular governments to try to deal with. But there's a lot of different issues. I read it in the Catechism and on the USCCB website. Well, the USCCP is kind of a bunch of dildos, and frankly, they're probably in de facto schism. So let's watch some more of this.
Have a claim to some kind
well,
of
let me see if I can find some
because
highlights, because I wanted to look at the actual source, but this is so cringy and so incoherent. Let's try to see some of this stuff.
Put these on. What does it do? Transports fresh food into the future, eliminating the need for canned emergency food.
I'm sorry for my incoherent rambling.
The United States did reach the stars. We at least reached the moon in 1969. And I would say between the First World War and the, say, 1965, Civil Rights and Immigration Acts, the Great Society, America achieved things that were seemingly impossible, that were almost unimaginable previously. Within a half century, we went from the creation of the airplane to sending a man to the moon. This is remarkable. This coincided, and I don't think it just coincided, I think it was caused to a great degree, with a racialist ethno-state immigration policy that began in 1924. There was a specifically not only racialist but Nordicist immigration policy that was inspired by Madison Grant and similar people who were interested in the conservationist and eugenics
America's immigration policy put a man on the moon, Mr. Argent.
I just said that no. Sargon, I'm not as dumb as you are, actually. I didn't say that.
That's a little bit of a stretch, Sargon.
Sargon, I just said that it coincided, and I actually think
well, you did say it was causal, didn't you?
I don't think an immigration act put a man on the moon. Are you this freaking moronic, Sargon?
Okay, let's see here. Richard Spencer eternally BTFOs Sargon.
Do you know if it's really...
Okay, let's see here.
All right, cool. So Min NSMH 20 pounds. Richard, you say out of one side of your mouth that liberalism is all idealistic fantasy, while your position is a pragmatic. Then out of the other, when you start talking about your ethno-state, you talk purely about your ideals.
Okay, that's an interesting statement. This is how I would answer that. I don't think liberalism is a good way of understanding social order or sovereignty. That is the foundation of a state. And so when Sargon says, "Oh, this is what governments are about," he's basically saying, "Haven't you read Common Sense? Haven't you read John Locke?" Because in this abstract world, that is what governments are about. I am saying that this is what governments are really about.
You have an
There is
abstract
no
world
doubt
as well.
force involved. There is no doubt rivalry and power relations involved, no question. Now, when I talk about the ethno-state, yes, it is inherently idealistic. It's not liberal,
Abstract.
but it is inherently idealistic in the sense of this is, there are ethno-states that exist today that could be protected, yes, but my conception of an ethno-state is something to shoot for. It is something that should be a telos, a great goal that we channel our actions towards. So I agree it is interesting to think about pragmatism and idealism, but there's no fundamental contradiction in terms of what I'm saying.
What you're saying is no different to what I'm saying. You just disagree with the goal.
No, that's not what
Yes,
I just
Richard,
said
every
very
time you
clearly.
pause for
Do you
a
want me to
long time,
reiterate
I say
myself,
no.
Sargon?
I think it's evident.
We have to say
everyone,
things
you
like
just don't
10
understand what I'm saying.
times for you to understand them.
No, Richard, it's obvious to everyone you don't understand what I'm saying. It's really
No,
your
it's
long pauses.
Sargon.
It's not. Just
Sargon,
come on, man. Stop trying to be a dick.
Sargon, I am
really-
sorry. You're going to find this insulting. You think that you are more intelligent than you are, and that is a
You're a
difficult
mind
place for
reader
you
now.
to be.
God,
No, I'm describing reality. I'm describing this
What color am I
experience
thinking?
with you.
You're telling me what I think. So what color? Come on.
Oh, give me a break.
Sargon.
Leave that.
No, don't give you. You just told me what I think. I don't know. What
I
you
didn't
think.
tell you what you
But
think.
I'm
I
interested.
said you have a conception of your intellectual abilities that are greater than reality, and that is a difficult place for
literally
any
do
human being
not
to
know
be.
anything
That is my
about
description of you,
anything.
Sargon, and I am sorry,
You
but I
are
have to be
wrong
honest to
on
you, and
all
you
of
should
these
actually thank me
things,
for
and
being
you're
so honest.
demonstrably wrong.
Fuck me, I have a difficult time even following this. Let's see here.
The government can just willy-nilly pick me up and throw me in prison. It's ridiculous.
Why not? Because Richard,
They
you
make
say
a
that,
tyranny.
that certain men have divine or have rights to rule, right? They've got this certain innate quality to them. So let's say that Donald Trump wants to lock you up. What's to stop him from doing that?
What's to stop
So,
him from doing
I
that
mean,
is
Richard, I
society.
almost want to encourage you not to even respond. At this point, there is severe logical fallacies being used. I'm kind of disgusted by the last 5 minutes, and I'm gonna just comment on this.
Good.
So you guys started with asking Richard about whether he would accept external influence from his ethno-state, entering into the ethno-state and making propaganda. I will point out that the first time...
Okay, I wanted to talk about something more interesting than this. So I think Sargon might be onto something with his doing a survey for questions about the alt-right. So I'm kind of floating the idea of trying to make a kind of a more professionally devised survey, because I know some people who do that sort of thing professionally. So I was thinking maybe I would ask them for some assistance, and I was thinking maybe doing a professional survey of the alt-right. So maybe go and look at a bunch of I get a bunch of questions together. I'd ask a whole bunch of demographics, religion, income level, education, and I might go and try to find some sort of, maybe get some people to talk about it on their channels, and maybe kind of try to do a survey of these different things. So I was thinking I might have a question just on abortion, but it would be a lot more kind of fair, and I just list the main positions. So I was thinking for that one, it would be what's your opinion on abortion? It should be legal in all cases. It should be illegal except in the case of rape, incest, mother's life, etc. And then I think abortion should be available on demand. I was thinking of maybe going through some of these like big issues and trying to see kind of where the current is. Obviously, it's not going to be scientific. Obviously, it's not going to really catch the whole position, but I was just kind of thinking about it. And I think it might be an interesting kind of experiment to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try writing something. Maybe you want to... But I'm thinking about it. Just as kind of something a bit different as a kind of quality content. So, okay.
Amendment and similar rights, such as those provided by the First Amendment, do not apply to outsiders. You do not have to guarantee the freedom of expression of an Australian who lives in Australia if you are the US government. Okay, so that's the first thing. You guys start with this comparison, and then you use that little experiment that you did with Richard by asking that specific question about outsiders, and then you reframe all of your examples within the United States, and then you're talking about citizen fighting against citizen, and then you're going up to justifying the fact that he could get hit by another citizen. But
Right,
this is
so you
an
don't-
aggression. This is a crime within a country where his rights need to be protected.
But JF,
Yes.
let Sargon respond to that.
Yeah, but you don't believe that the citizens have a right to choose the media that they enjoy.
If the government has
It's
a
two-way street.
prerogative
It
to
may be an
protect
outside
its
thing.
own sovereignty and social order.
Exactly.
You
that's-
believe that yourself.
No, Richard, you're not listening to
If the
anything I'm
Russians were
saying.
actually trying to subvert American democracy, would you want the United States government to prevent them from doing that?
Would I want them to like censor Facebook? Prevent outside people from talking to people within my nation? No, absolutely not.
So would you just let the subversion continue?
Absolutely, you have to fight it.
It's just... I don't know.
I have a guest coming in.
This is...
The government can
this is
just
This is unwatchable. Wow, the case for white nationalism, a discussion with Malaya Woes. 4 hours long. Oh my god. So, somebody said Sargon did a... I don't know. As I was saying, a lot of people give me crap over being a... Did I post that? No, I didn't post that yet. Yeah, a lot of people give me crap over being pro-life. It's just kind of a... okay, let's see here. Okay, I want to do another half hour, maybe, of this stream. But honestly, like, I can't watch this anymore. I have no idea what the fuck is going on. I have no idea what these assholes are talking about. This is the worst debate I've ever seen. Like, I don't, like, get, like, what's even fucking like, what are they talking about the ethno state? Are they talking about individual versus collectivism? It's just a series of people making unrelated monologues over one another. Like, the only person in this debate who offered anything resembling an argument is Styx. And I think Styx won this. I think Styx dominated because all of his points that I was able to see were consistent. They made sense, etc. No, I tried not skipping around in the debate. I watched like 20 minutes to half an hour of this, and I was just so bored that I couldn't even watch it. It's just it's just I just it's just the worst. I don't know. Does anybody else have something they want to watch? Because I just can't go any longer. This is just Oh, okay, here we go. Someone posted a Sargon video. Okay.
Hey everyone,
let's
so
look at
I
this.
thought I'd do a quick after-action report with people who messaged me about the debate on Andy Warski's channel with Richard Spencer. So, V, how did you think it? How did you find it in general?
They advocated for Romania during communism. That I know people hate the horseshoe theory, but listen, okay, just have an open mind, read The Conquest of Bread, and replace class with race. And then you can even troll the alt-right by copying like segments of it, posting it, and you will see how they agree with, right? So whenever you see worker, replace it with the white person, and whenever you see the rich or the bourgeoisie, replace it with Jew, and you have like the perfect alt-right handbook.
Okay, Friended, what did you think of it? I think your mic's not working.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just I was amazed that you guys were actually talking about ideas. I was trying to imagine. Did you drop out, or did you get in last minute and Dick Coughlin was going to jump in?
Yeah, I think so. I basically, like, a bunch of people had asked, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll talk to him. And I heard other people going to me. When Kevin Logan found out, he messaged me on Facebook, 'cause he recently unblocked me on Facebook, saying, I can't believe you're the representative for the left. And I just flat out told him, dude, you can't win an argument with the alt-right. You know, you agree with too many of their premises. So, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't though, did he?
Well, no, he does. From a far left perspective, he does. I mean, Richard Spencer sounds like a bloody leftist. But sorry, yeah, Friended, what did you think?
Well, I thought it was actually pretty amazing. I mean, Richard Spencer is putting forward an argument that is a classical conservative argument. I don't know. Have either of you read Mark Lillis' most recent book about the once and future liberal, where he outlines that conservatism in America has been very individualistic since the days of Reagan, but was much more groupish before that. It really seems like he is putting forward a vision of conservatism that is very much pre-Reagan, which I think is very interesting. And the argument that Lilith makes in that book is that you can only get so far with individualism because the breaking point is that you can't really organize people into voting blocks. So I mean, I'm somewhat sympathetic to what he is saying. I know that you're making a very much an individualistic case, but I wonder if that case ultimately has legs. Does that make sense?
Well, the purpose of individualism is to prevent voting blocks, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't have voting blocks, how do you have power?
You have power on issues rather than identities.
Yeah, but people still, I mean, people do gravitate. It's very easy. The case that Mark Lilith makes is that it's very easy for people at the top of society to be very individualistic.
I think I disagree. I disagree with Sargon here. I do think people should have identities, but should be identities.
They'll have identities either way. I mean, I'm not trying to take people's identities away. I'm just saying.
Okay, let's just read some of the comments. I'm going to end this because I'm sorry, I just can't watch this anymore. I'm sorry that this stream sucked. I just like to apologize to everybody about how bad this was. To be kind of fair to me, that there wasn't like a ton to really go off because this whole thing was just so like all over the place and they were just kind of debating uninteresting topics. So yeah, I just like to apologize for this. I'm gonna even say in the title of this, like, that this is low quality. Like I said, I'm sorry. I legitimately am for this. So I just wanted to say, kind of as a side note, and because I know a lot of people have been asking me, where's the new Evangelion episodes? Where's the new Evangelion episodes? Okay, like, here they are, guys. Here they are. See, they're all queued up. The Evangelion episodes are all queued up. They're going to be posting every Wednesday and Sunday until it's finished. So there's going to be one Wednesday, there's going to be one Sunday, and etc. So yeah, there is yeah, so that stuff is all going to be up. I'm going to eventually do the second Israel video. We're going to talk about the founding of Israel to the 6-Day War. So like there is some actual like stuff I'm going to put an effort into to kind of come. So we'll also do at some point another viewer hangout. I've just kind of been busy with some other stuff. So, I just like to say goodnight to everybody. Sorry this didn't turn out better, and have a good evening.